Welcome, guys, to How the Frack We Got Here, a show that takes the news and events of the week and try to make sense out of it all. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan, and on this show, we simply are all about the facts. There are plenty of news stations out there that simply want to do anything short but inform you. Here at How the Frack We Got Here, that's all we believe in. We go up to the left, we go up to the right, we go up to the middle of independence, we go after all sides because there's more than one side of a story to everything. And you need to know it all in order to actually formulate your own opinion. And that's what we try to do here at How the Frack We Got Here. Thanks for listening, and hold on. It's going to be fun.
All right, guys. Today's date, November the 19th, 2022, and this is How the Frack We Got Here. I'm your host, the most Will Buchanan. How the Frack We Got Here. We do take the events of the week and try to make sense of it all. Before we do get started, guys, let you know, even though this is a news podcast, we do try to watch our language, but at the same time, words may fly, and also there may be things that might be shown that might be just a wee bit graphic for younger viewers, so your discretion is advised. Aside from that, welcome. So, how do we start this off? Well, we have to start off with the fact that, we definitely now know our next shape of Congress it's going to be. We already knew Democrats going to take the Senate, but unfortunately, on some news that we saw coming, the GOP got the House.
Tonight, there is breaking news about the balance of political power in this country. 8 days after the midterm elections, NBC News is now projecting that the House of Representatives will shift to Republican control following a series of GOP wins in House races across the country. This will create a divided government, with Democrats retaining control of the Senate, so a split Congress over the next 2 years of the Biden administration. Garrett Hake has late details. Garrett, good evening.
Lester, good evening. And that's right. NBC News projecting tonight that Republicans, in a major victory, will flip control of the House of Representatives, though their margin will be slim. American voters delivering a split decision and divided government for the next 2 years, with Democrats still projected to maintain control of the Senate. All of this as we got that big announcement from former President Trump last night. Tonight, new signs of Republican divisions after former President Trump became the first declared candidate of the 2024 presidential election.
In order to make America great and glorious again, I am tonight announcing my candidacy for President of the United States.
Many Republicans showing support.
I like his policies. I like how tough he is.
So many people are attracted to this guy and how he fights for this country.
But some former allies panning his return.
I think he's the only Republican who could lose.
Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo tweeting, "We need leaders who are looking forward, not staring in the rearview mirror, claiming victimhood." Mr. Trump making his announcement at Mar-a-Lago, taking aim at his successor.
Now we are a nation in decline. We are a failing nation. For millions of Americans, the past 2 years under Joe Biden have been a time of pain, hardship, anxiety, and despair.
Mr. Trump surrounded by supporters, but notably absent last night, daughter Ivanka, who had been a key advisor when Mr. Trump was in the White House. Ivanka Trump writing, "While I will always love and support my father, going forward, I will do so outside the political arena." The former president impeached twice, including for his role in stoking the January 6th attack on the Capitol, announcing his run just as some Republicans blame his hand-picked candidates for underperforming in the midterms, but insisting his movement can make a comeback.
Just as I promised in 2016, I am your voice.
But Mr. Trump could face Republican competition, including from Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, coming off his landslide re-election victory. Tonight, DeSantis brushing off talk of a Republican civil war.
No, look, I think we just finished this election. Okay, people just need to chill out a little bit on some of this stuff.
On Capitol Hill, Republican leaders in both chambers dodging questions about 2024.
Do you support him for president?
The way I'm going to go into this presidential primary season is to stay out of it. I don't have a dog in that fight.
So, Garrett, what happens next on Capitol Hill as the days to come to play out?
Lester, Democrats will now likely scramble to pass some key priorities that might lack support in a future Republican Congress, things like expanded COVID aid and more money for Ukraine. And we're also learning tonight that a former member of Congress, Democrat Karen Bass, has been projected the next mayor of Los Angeles.
All right, so a lot to unpack there. Yes, as we discussed beforehand, guys, we knew from before the election night that it was going to play out in one. I mean, during election night, we found out there was going to be at least one of three scenarios. Two were highly unlikely, and one was more the possible situation where Dems would keep the Senate and Republicans would get the House. Keep in mind, I kept saying this entire time up until the midterms, the Republicans' goal was to disrupt the simple majority. That's all they wanted. Now, if they got the House, cool. If they got the House and Senate, bonus. That means they could lock out Biden and try to still pass whatever they wanted passed with that newly found power. But with Democrats having the Senate and the Republicans having GOP, most of us see it as a stalemate. I see it as another lame duck session just because I kept saying the entire time. I've asked people who voted conservatives, I've tried to ask conservatives, what's actually your goals if you guys do get the majority in either the House or either House or the Senate? I mean, what do you do? Because 2024 is still a long way off. As you can see, that former failure in chief Donald Trump is already re-announcing that he's going to be rerunning. You also see that the GOP and Fox News and Friends and all of them are starting to kind of distance themselves a little bit from Trump. And there's also a possibility that Governor Ron DeSantis may also consider a presidential bid in 2024. But I've been asking this question the entire time for folks that want to vote red. Even in my home state of Tennessee, I still ask this question: why you vote red? To me, it's like voting against your own interests. You're shooting yourself in the foot and reloading. Considering the fact that every time Tennessee has voted for a conservative individual, that they've done worse under said conservative individual. Actually, we've seen a lot of the only time we've ever seen a lot of actual conservative production was some of under a independent or democratic person historically. But that being said, it goes back to the GOP once again. What are you guys actually going to do? Do you have a plan? Are you going to submit something to help the American people, or are you just full of air? Well, for all those that are wondering, this is actually what they plan to investigate. And I said investigate. I didn't say bills. I said investigate. What are they investigating, however? Let's find out. They're going to investigate the southern border. Pretty much, Republican members of the House Judiciary Committee sent a letter to the Department of Homeland Security telling him and other department officials to be prepared for their testimony over the 118th once the 118th Congress convenes regarding how the border security has been handled, saying that they've encountered more than 2 million migrants and wondering why it's still a problem. Yes, the GOP that wanted to build a wall because they felt like immigrants could literally not fly, or felt like, the wall itself is an effective tool, is now going to go back to the Democrats who had to clean up the GOP's mess and ask them, what's the issue with immigrants? Because, we just made the problem worse, but nobody remembers. They also want to talk about they also want to investigate the Afghanistan withdrawal. I know, stupid as hell. That again, with President Biden not too long ago did make the smart decision to remove troops from Afghanistan last year after being in the sandbox for 20 years. Again, a lot of Republicans questioned it. Well, a lot of Republicans that were a part of the military-industrial complex that were getting kickbacks from private military companies and arms dealers, by the way, and arms makers. But it's amazing that they're trying to investigate because it was reported that Biden had made the decision to withdraw against the objection of most of his military advisors. Yes. So two things that are basically wasted. Oh, but we're not done. They also want to investigate the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic, because Fox News couldn't get away from Wuhan, China long enough. So they want to investigate that too. I don't know why. They also want to, guess what? They also want to go to the Department of Justice because Jim Jordan, who has been itching to be a part of the House Judiciary Committee, once they take over the majority, has sat there and said that they will investigate the Department of Justice, which means Merrick Garland and Company, over supposedly alleged targeting of Project Veritas, which was basically for the project for searching for documents from anything from that project to classified documents being searched at Trump's Mar-a-Lago's resort. Yes, they are going to investigate a fully legal T's were crossed and I's were dotted, where the Attorney General, where the Director of the FBI, and the Florida Governor and the Secret Service were all in coordination for Mar-a-Lago getting raided because the former failure in chief had documents he wasn't supposed to have because he no longer had the clearance, And now the 118th Congress, most importantly, Republicans are going to investigate that. And if you thought that was and the cherry on top out of all this, the cherry on top, the newly 118th Congress that's going to have GOP majority is going to investigate Hunter Biden. Keep in mind, they want to investigate Hunter Biden because supposedly Hunter Biden has somehow compromised the current president. Somehow, because Biden was in trouble with foreign, according to their allegations, he was in trouble with former business partners. He was in trouble with drugs and things of that nature, and he felt like national security has been compromised. Republicans are being completely honest about this. And I've sat there and said to all your conservatives, that's just 5 things. Keep in mind, the 118th Congress hasn't been sworn in, won't be sworn in until January. But that is the 5 things that they want to investigate. And I'm trying to figure out why. Why do you want to investigate the southern border when Republicans have been the crux of the immigration problems here in America? You want to investigate the Afghanistan withdrawal when you had no problem going into a country, occupying it for 20 years, realizing that we're wasting money, resources, and manpower. And because the president finally decided it was time to pull the plug, you chicken hawks decided, no, we should have stayed there. For what reason? It was literally a war that was started on false information because we went from Iraq to Afghanistan. No matter how you slice the mustard, President Biden made the right choice in withdrawing troops. It was only going to be that, or it was going to be a major troop reduction, because who's going to go into the armed forces if they're just going to send you in active war zones we had no problem with, which we really don't need to be in at this point, since we got bin Laden so long ago. We want to investigate the origin of COVID-19. Why? We should be trying to figure out how to keep it from being spread or how more variants are being actually created. But again, Republicans and also the Department of Justice and Hunter Biden. This is what I keep saying, guys. This is how the GOP works. Besides the fact they're worthless, they're not bringing any plans forward. They're not talking about how to bring back American jobs, how to boost the economy, how to help the American people. They're not saying anything. This is just basically people that got elected to high offices in Congress who are going to waste taxpayers' money chasing their tails. You know what I just saw the whole entire time when I was going down that list? Benghazi, 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 Benghazi. Oh, what about Benghazi? We should talk more about Benghazi. I could hear the tinfoil hats just cringing because these are all it is. Witch hunts, smoke screens, nothing. Because the GOP doesn't have any plans. The GOP doesn't care about the American people. But yet, for the life of me, conservatives vote for them again and again. I have yet to figure out why. But I will say this, come next year, you're going to see a lot of BS and very few bills coming from the House of Representatives, especially from the GOP. Really don't see that coming. But since the GOP is taking the House, that means that all eyes are on Nancy Pelosi, as she also made a shocking announcement.
After losing her speaker's job following Republican wins in the House, Nancy Pelosi announcing the end of an era.
When I first came to the floor at 6 years old, never would I have thought that someday I would go from homemaker to House Speaker.
For the first time in 2 decades, she will not lead the Democratic Party in the House.
I will not seek re-election to Democratic leadership in the next Congress. For me, the hour's come for a new generation to lead the Democratic caucus that I so deeply respect.
It's a historic moment. Pelosi is the first and only woman to serve as House Speaker. Today, praising 3 of the 4 presidents she worked with. No mention of former President Trump, who she once stood behind tearing up a copy of the State of the Union. Her move comes just weeks after her husband Paul was assaulted inside their San Francisco home. Today, Pelosi getting emotional, speaking about him.
For my dear husband, Paul, who has been my beloved partner in life and my pillar of support, thank you.
Pelosi has been a lightning rod for Republicans for decades.
One-party Democrat rule in Washington is finished. We have fired Nancy Pelosi.
The GOP now facing the challenging job of governing with a slim majority. something Pelosi excelled at for years.
It's been my privilege to play a part in forging extraordinary progress for the American people.
The question now for Democrats is who comes next? And the favorite appears to be Hakeem Jeffries, a congressman from New York. If he's successful, he'd be the first black leader of either party in both the Senate and the House.
So yes, Nancy Pelosi has decided to hang it up after not no longer being House Majority Speaker, and didn't want to be House Minority Speaker. This is the one thing I kept saying, that when it comes to these older generations, I believe that if you're going to serve in the Senate and if you're going to serve in the House, it should have the same terms as the president's office. Serve 2 consecutive terms, and then you got to sit one out. Just because a lot of senators and representatives have kind of made it a lifetime achievement, as long as they keep getting elected, to stay there. And I felt like Pelosi, who was to me more moderate than progressive, I thought her time was really, when you had a lot of more progressives coming into the Democrats, I felt like it was her time to step aside, either join the boat or step aside. Because these centrist and moderate Democrats are really just Republican light. And I think they're blocking progressive agendas from actually happening. So, I mean, Pelosi, for all her acts and intents, I mean, she did do great work as House Majority Speaker. Did I think that she blocked a lot of things? Yes. She did block the idea of wiping out student loan debt. She did block the idea of not speaking about minimum wage when she really should have. She did block the idea of a lot of things of the Green Bill that AOC and a lot of other progressive Democrats were trying to push through. And she sometimes did cave in to Republican ordeals. So, I mean, yes, there were some achievements that she did. There was also some mistakes that she did. But again, it's just, if Hakeem Jeffries, again, if he is elected House Minority Speaker, will be the first black person to lead a body of Congress, I'll be impressed. But I have been saying this, that once Schumer and Pelosi and those of the old guard stand down, progressiveness has to basically be cranked up to 11 for Democrats, because progressive measures are needed for this country right now. And unless one party is pushing forward with them and being unapologetic about it, I fear that the GOP is going to have their way with it if they're too busy chasing their own tails. But I digress. But speaking of things that are chasing on their own tails, guys, again, I know you've probably heard so much about this. You've probably seen it on TikTok. That Biden student loan forgiveness program has been held up. It's allowed to go through, being sued from 6 different directions, just because of the GOP and private banks want to basically keep people in debt. They really do. I've said it many times on this podcast. The whole idea of student loans is the fantasy that you can use this to find a better job. And once you find a better job, that you can pay this off in no time. That's the fantasy. Let's be honest, in this job market, especially now, if you're in the tech industry, which is going through a recession, it's a little hard to find any job that's going to pay you a living wage, much less despite the industry. But with that being said, Biden is trying to come forward and is asking an appeals court to allow the Biden program to continue or go into effect while it's being invested, while the lawsuit's being handled in court. Because right now it's being blocked by a federal appeals court. A judge had ruled it illegal, because again, in their ruling, that the president does not have the ability to forgive student loans. I was like, it's amazing how these judges came out of nowhere and said that no, he does not have the ability, and we're blocking it. Which again, this was done by the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which is currently at right now. But again, this is a case where 6 states, Nebraska, Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, Kansas, South Carolina, all brought this up. So if that goes to show anything, it goes to show that they do not want this to go into effect. Why? They don't want it to go into effect for the simple fact of the matter is they like debt. Banks like debt. Banks like debt. Banks like people who have student loans, because unless they win the lottery between here and tomorrow, they are yours for the next 10 to 20, maybe 30 years. I mean, think about that for a second. And it's like, it's crazy, because I've said to myself, my future children will not be taking out student loans. I refuse. because I don't want them barred or married or it's student loans is kind of like having that kind of like the ball and chain, like the old prisoner cartoon television shows, the ball and chain being attached to your ankle. That's what a student loan debt is. That debt can affect your credit, can affect you getting a house, can affect you getting a car, can affect you getting a job because jobs check credit too. Um, but it is amazing that as much as we try to be progressive and try to help people out, because we help out banks, we help out airlines, we help out automotive industries, but when it comes to the American people, the GOP simply have a problem with helping people, which I think this is their side of them being a hypocrite. But we will follow that story as it goes along. I just wish that Biden was just the one thing I'll say about President Biden is that sometimes it is too little, too late. He should have really decided on the student loan debt relief a long time ago. It felt like as we were getting close to the midterms, he decided to finally say what he was going to do because he was very specific about the $20,000 amounts. But my thing is, had he done this at the beginning of his presidency, I think it would have been a much different outcome. I promise you, it would have been a much different outcome. But I digress. Moving forward, though, because we did talk about the DOJ, and the reason why Trump and his legal team should be nervous, especially about the documents, especially about the January 6th Commission investigation, well, they decided to pull a Robert Mueller and assign a special investigator.
I'm here today to announce the appointment of a special counsel in connection with two ongoing criminal investigations that have received significant public attention. The first, as described in court filings in the District of Columbia, is the investigation into whether any person or entity unlawfully interfered with the transfer of power following the 2020 presidential election or the certification of the Electoral College vote held on or about January 6, 2021. The second is the ongoing investigation involving classified documents and other presidential records, as well as the possible obstruction of that investigation, referenced and described in court filings in a pending matter in the Southern District of Florida. I'm joined today by Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia Matthew Graves, and Assistant Attorney General for the Criminal Division Kenneth Polite. Assistant Attorney General for National Security Matthew Olson could not be here. He is currently in Germany representing the department at the G7 Home Affairs and Security Ministerial. U.S. Attorney Graves has been ably leading the investigations into the events leading up to and on January 6. He and dozens of assistant U.S. attorneys and other prosecutors have taken on the monumental task of conducting over 900 prosecutions in defense of our democratic institutions. Criminal Division prosecutors under the able leadership of Assistant Attorney General Polite have played a significant role in those prosecutions. Assistant Attorney General Olson has been ably leading the team responsible for investigating the matter involving classified documents and other presidential records, as well as the possible obstruction of that investigation. All of the career prosecutors assigned to these matters are conducting their work in the best traditions of the Department of Justice. I also want to recognize the efforts of the many FBI agents and other law enforcement personnel who are assigned to these matters. They are working courageously and steadfastly and are serving our nation honorably. I am grateful to them. We all are.
Okay, so what does that basically mean? Trump should be worried. It's basically Robert Mueller Part 2. This is especially the Department of Justice, which was very smart, considering that the GOP GOP Congress will be going sworn in this January, and the fact that hey, we're going to show you guys. And I mean, this is actually one step that the AG did not have to do, but decided to do anyway. Why? Because a lot of people, Fox News, Newsmax, The Blaze, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, all believe that Trump is being handled unfairly. So what did the AG decide to do? We're going to appoint a special counsel, someone that has no affiliation with us, that is completely neutral, and will look at the case and the evidence and do it without bias. Because this is all they're doing. Like I said before, guys, they are setting up. This is the whole setup on Trump to where they can sit there and go, we did this without bias. We did this by the book. We did this by all rules and regulations. He has no leg to stand on because this is what Trump does best. Trump is not a smart person, but he knows enough to get lawyers that will sit there and use the current legal system to appeal and sue and appeal and sue and appeal and sue and stay and appeal and sue. They know how to do it because that's what the law allows to a certain extent. So again, I'm not surprised by the simple fact of the matter that that the AG is like, okay, we're going to take this away from you. Because they tried, in other words, they tried with a special investigation, with a special individual to go over the documents from Mar-a-Lago that were recovered, and it backfired because that special individual said, "Yeah, the FBI can look at it because those are federal documents. They can look at it." Backfired in Trump's face. So now that the AG is moving forward with a special counsel to basically look into the situation, this is why I say, for the simple fact of the matter, that Trump should be worried. Because this is they're basically setting up the case to where it can be airtight, to where eventually failure in chief may find himself in court. But stay tuned. Move right along, guys. Some other quick news before we get to the mess that is Twitter. Faith groups are split over the bill to protect same-sex marriage. The Respect for Marriage Act, for all those that didn't know, that didn't watch the midweek review, it did actually pass the House, so it definitely did move on to the Senate. Where the Respect for Marriage Key Act vote actually did get passed when 12 Senate Republicans joined all Democrats. Amazing, isn't it? It took same-sex marriage for GOP people to get on board, or at least some of them. But anyway, it's amazing to me how faith-based groups are coming out and saying this is a problem. The one in the church that were for it, the Church of Christ of Latter-day Saints, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, y'all remember those commercials, came out in favor of it. However, just because it's in the South, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops and leaders of the Southern Baptist Convention say that this is a dire threat to religious liberty. How? I have to ask this question. It's just allowing individuals to get married and their marriages to be recognized. How in the blue hell is it a threat to religious liberty? And this is the one thing that always kills me about I call them religious nuts, but these people bother me greatly. And I say greatly because these are the same folks that will sit there and say, my religion, I'm being prosecuted for my religion. And then you look at the story and go, no, you're not. You're a fucking idiot. I won't. They're suing me because I won't bake a cake. Then advise them someone else. Well, it's my right. I said, it's your religious right. No, you as a business, you have the right to refuse service to anybody. But it's just like if you're working in a place where people have to come to you, like old girl Kim, what's her name, that was in Kentucky, who wouldn't distribute marriage licenses to same-sex people. Remember that whole run she had? Remember how Mike Huckabee and all of them came down there? We support you in your religious freedom. No, that's religious oppression. Because it's amazing the same folks who cry about religious freedom have no problem with oppressing their religion on someone else because they believe they are morally superior because of it. And that's a problem, especially for those same-sex marriages. For same-sex marriages or transgender marriages, or however you choose to cut the mustard, you should be allowed to love and marry whoever you want, as long as they're an adult and they're consenting. That's it. What you do with your marriage and behind closed doors is your business, but it won't affect me none. I will still sleep fine either way. But it is amazing to me how those in religion have an issue with people different from them getting married will always scream, this is an attack on religious rights. It's only an attack on religious rights if your rights are being infringed upon, which means unless you can still marry whoever you want to, as long as they consent and they're of age, then what the crap are you complaining about? It sounds like to me you just don't like. It sounds like to me you just might be a little bit of a bigot, just a little bit. But speaking of things that are just weird, but then I'm not surprised about this either. Jamal Khashoggi, for all those that don't remember, was an American journalist that was killed, and allegedly the the Saudi Arabian family may or may not have a hand in it, specifically the crown prince, the Saudi crown prince. Well, some news came out about that the U.S. has sat there and said, because Jamal Khashoggi's fiance was trying to bring a wrongful death suit against the Saudi crown prince, and has now sat there and said that no, we're going to give him we're going to go ahead and give him immunity because he's the quote unquote prime minister of his country. Now, keep in mind, Jamal Khashoggi was one of those journalists that written out against the Saudi family, especially for their oppression and terrorist tactics over in Saudi Arabia. And again, this is the same guy that was entering an embassy and never came out and was executed. But again, I know we had to be. I mean, if all the evidence does point to the Saudi family, but again, we cannot say that. We can only say allegedly. But the fact that this man is going to be given immunity and that Jamal Khashoggi's fiance will never see justice that way is a crying effing shame. But then again, he's sitting on the number 3 deposit of oil in the world. So I'm not saying anything, but take it what you can get from there. But Lee, we'll go ahead and move on to the dumpster fires that are Amazon and Twitter, especially for all those, if you were on Twitter, a lot of people were saying RIP Twitter, rest in peace Twitter, Black Twitter, we're going to miss you. I know I'm going to miss you, Black Twitter. But the reason why they're saying that is because ever since Elon Musk took over, well, Elon Musk does what every venture capitalist does. He brings no ideas. He guts the carcass completely. And anybody else that's trying to get a piece, well, this happens to you.
Staff is once again shrinking. Employees reportedly resigned en masse. That means a bunch of them at the same time after billionaire boss Elon Musk presented them with an ultimatum. He said, get hardcore or get out.
Yeah, now the company's office buildings are closed and badge access suspended, even for those who still work there. NBC News senior reporter Ben Collins is joining us now. So, Ben, obviously, Elon Musk has been making a lot of noise in the past couple of days. Was this Musk's vision of Twitter 2.0?
I have no idea at this point. Also, a memo just came out from Elon saying anybody who can write code, please report to an office space by 2 p.m., even though this office is closed. So who knows what the plan is here. If it's to completely gut this website of its staff and engineering staff, that would be that plan is working out. But it is really fully unclear what the plan is for Twitter 2.0 at this point.
Ben, let's talk about Musk's tweet. He said, what's the best way to make a small fortune in social media? Start with a large one. So Musk seems to be making light of all of this turmoil. Do they honestly think he wants Twitter to fail? I mean, what would he gain if Twitter goes down?
He would gain a world with a lot less scrutiny for his other projects. He would gain a lot of revenge on his political enemies. He would make it so it's much harder to criticize him in public. However, I don't think that was the initial plan. I think the initial plan was to make it successful. Otherwise, it would have started differently a couple of weeks ago. That said, I wouldn't put it past him at this point if he's seeing the walls crumbling. So it's a very complicated time right now with this company. I don't even think he knows what's about to happen next.
And Ben, you can't forget about Tesla. So could this jeopardize Musk standing with his other venture?
Yeah, Tesla employees are wondering why he's sleeping at a social media site instead of trying to make cars at his much larger and more profitable venture that sells products people want and are driving on the road. So look, it is a cascading series of pretty bad events for him. He might need Twitter to turn around for Tesla to turn around. We're going to find this out together.
Ben, bring us back to Twitter for one moment. We are all on that platform. Yesterday, I saw so many people doing their farewell Twitter messages. What are the chances Twitter goes away entirely?
Entirely, I would say pretty low, but it may have a really hard time staying online. Infrastructurally, it's not a great website, and it needs engineers to continue to keep going. And also, it doesn't have any way of making money. So I don't think it's going to go away full stop, but it's not going to be what it was before.
So it's crazy, right? That Elon Musk, in the span, I think let's do this here. Didn't he buy Twitter like 3 weeks ago? 3 weeks ago was finalized. Let's just say 3 weeks. Let's just say a month. Let's say a month just to give it some time. So he bought Twitter a month ago. He fired two senior VPs, two senior executives, two senior VPs. One VP, he found a way of not having to pay him $42 million as part of a golden parachute, which was, to me, the most diabolical thing you can do as a CEO. Then he turns around and gets prepared to fire half of the staff. Then turns around and says that, well, we are going to do hardcore work conditions, either decide to get with it or get lost. And the majority of Twitter's staff said, cool, peace. Now, again, from speaking from an IT standpoint, when the majority of the people you depend upon to keep Twitter running or keep a service running, especially those in the engineering, coding, programming, and overall problem solving department, when you decide to tell those people that and they say peace, your system will not stay up for very long. And I feel bad for Twitter because, again, it was a place. It was a place that you really could, talk and get social, do social activity, and do social outings, things of that nature. Really get your message across and be heard. And now Elon Musk has gutted it to the point to where it's possible that it may not be around after a while. And so, and it's sad considering how much he paid to get Twitter in the first place. But time will tell on that. But there's one thing I am going to miss. I'm going to miss Black Twitter. Black Twitter brought us so much joy. But that's not the only company in turmoil. I did also talk about this week that Amazon, along with Microsoft, along with Tesla, along with Lyft and Uber and Peloton, are all doing or all be cutting their jobs. And really quick, it never ceases to amaze me when companies cut jobs or cut workers. We never sit there and say, why can't the company do better? But when we see when we see people who are employed leave jobs for better jobs, or leave jobs because this job pays more, leave jobs once they find something better, we always shun the workers. Why do we always shun employees? We shun employees that do better for themselves, but when businesses do terrible investments and cut their workforces in half, we never shun the businesses. I've always wondered that. That's just something. But anyway, Amazon, let me get to it. So in Amazon's case, you guys, like I said before, we did talk about this during the midweek review that Amazon will be cutting 10,000 jobs sometime either this week or between this week and next week. What they didn't say was that as of announced up today, that the layoffs will continue into next year. The CEO sat there and said that, of course, they're trying to blame on the fact of inflation, on the fact that profits are down and things of that nature. The fact the rapid hiring, because as I did report this Wednesday, that hiring during the pandemic increased, that they hired well over 800,000 workers. And they're trying to say, well, all those decisions and what's going on right now just seems to be that it's the time that we have to keep the company afloat and cut more jobs in the future. Now, here's my thing, because again, with Amazon is the Walmart of e-commerce. It would take a massive undertaking for Amazon to finally go away or to be on life support. A lot of people depend on Amazon. A lot of people depend on its services like Instacart, like Amazon Music and Audible, which is also purchased by Amazon. So all those things combined, and for what it's got going on for it right now, Amazon may not go away. But I've also said this from experience working as an Amazon driver and then seeing people that work as packers, things of that nature. I'll say this once and I'll say this again. I have no problem repeating myself. There is no such thing as company loyalty. These companies will hire you one day and fire you or cut you in the same day, and will give you a whole bunch of reasons for it, but will try to shun you when you find something better. Always do better for yourself. It's just that simple, because you've probably seen the Instagram and YouTube videos out there of people, especially Amazon, which I don't really have up here because I wasn't able to find it in time, of where people are in line already, turning in their badges, vests, and everything else. And nobody likes losing a job, especially this day and age where everything's going up at your paycheck. But I still think along those lines, corporations like Amazon should be held accountable. But I digress. Move right along, guys. We get into our feel good segment, because usually how the fact we got here, we usually talk about things that are doom and gloom, and sometimes we lose faith in humanity. But hey, it's Saturday, it's the weekend. We want to leave you guys out with some good vibes, and this story definitely comes in the form of ballet. Yes, Ballet is a sport. I don't care what no one says. Ballet is a freaking sport for what all those men and women go through. But anyway, here's the story.
This is history in motion. In more than 80 years of the American Ballet Theater in New York, now this. The dancers and the creative team, including the costume designer, music composer, and lighting director, are all Black, led by a Black choreographer.
It's the first of its kind in a predominantly white company.
Christopher Rudd was inspired to push boundaries in ballet after the tragic death of George Floyd. The production is called Lifted.
I came up with the idea of using dance to speak to the ripple effect of the notion that Black Lives Matter shouldn't be a controversial statement, but just a matter of fact.
Rudd's always been a trailblazer, growing up defying notions of what a ballet dancer should look like. It's an emotional experience for him.
I think because I didn't realize till I got older that people didn't think I belonged in this space.
It's thrilling to be part of a time where we are pioneering a new ballet that is rooted in our experience.
A performance colored by pain to reshape the future.
I hope to celebrate Black creatives, uplift Black people, and frankly, center our voices at this historic time in the evolution of our country.
A powerful notion presented with grace. Rahima Ellis, NBC News.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. Like I said, ballet is probably one of the very few things that I don't know, but for the simple fact of the matter is you can't knock poetry in motion, especially because I said it before and I'll say it again, representation matters. If, when you see people of your color actually doing things that you never thought you'd see them do, it does inspire others. Please never forget that. But that's going to do it for this podcast, guys. I do thank you all for watching, for liking, for letting people know it's live. I certainly appreciate that. Some shameless plugging before we do get out of here, guys. I do want to shout out to my buddy who just recently had a birthday, Big BZA Dot. You can definitely give him a shout out, even donate to him on all his socials, Big BZA Dot, where you can find his TikToks and his beats. So definitely say happy birthday. And if you feel like blessing a dude, I'm not going to knock you for it. I just said happy birthday. He already knows me. He gonna get me for that. Of course, me, guys, BlackFox447 on all socials. You can find me on TikTok, on Instagram, on YouTube, things of that nature. Follow me. I usually post everything that I watch, play, and read. Also some gym stuff because I do a couple push-ups. And again, guys, before I wrap this up, my wish, and I'm going to keep repeating this, is that I wish for more unity. I wish for more collaboration among people. I wish for us that the only way to solve this problem is not to depend on anyone but a government, but us. We can solve our own problems if we are willing to come together and do so. But that in itself, unity is a challenge. Is it difficult? Yes. Impossible? No. But that's all I say. The ticker you see at the bottom, guys, I'm going to make that just a wee bit bigger. If you copy and paste that into your browser, it'll take you to my link tree. That's the YouTube group, YouTube and Facebook groups for all of my podcasts, How the Frack Got Here, Get Bit, and of course, y'all for this podcast. Like, share, and subscribe. And let me know about the show. Did you like what you see? Did you didn't like what you see? I'm curious because I want to know you guys' feedback on everything that we covered. Aside from that, guys, coronavirus and its many deceptants and variants are still out there. It's real. If you're going to be in the area or if you're going to be traveling, especially in high volume areas, please wear a mask. Do everything you can do to protect yourself. If you feel the least bit sick, please stay home because the only way we're going to beat this pandemic is to actually follow the rules and look out for each other. That being said, guys, the last thing I'll say about How the Frack Got Here, it's all about staying informed. We are not trying to reinvent the wheel. We are simply giving you all the information, allow you to make up your own mind, but providing a logical perspective that goes along with it. We do a lot better as a society once we're informed. We're progressive. We move forward. We try to right the wrongs of our past by making decisions now that we should have done back then. Like electing our first Black woman to the Supreme Court, electing our first Black woman to the Federal Board of Governors, electing our first Black 4-star military general armed forces, all great things. When we don't learn from history, that's why we are doomed to repeat it. That's why we keep asking ourselves, why does everything go up by our paycheck? Why are we electing different politicians with the same old game in Congress? And most importantly, how the frack we got here. Thank you all for watching, guys. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves and each other. We will all get through this. Peace.